We continue now at the top of Daf Tazayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 16a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara brought two opinions in terms of whether you're allowed to sell shields to the Avodah Zara, to those who are idol worshippers. And the Gemara said, according to the one who says you're not allowed to sell them shields, what is the reason for that? If you're going to say that the reason is we don't want them to have the shields to protect themselves, so why should we be able to sell them things like wheat and barley, which are to sustain themselves? But we certainly sell them those items. And the Gemara says, well, if it was possible to not sell them barley and wheat, we would do that, but that's impossible, so that we have to sell them. But shields, that's something that we're able to not sell them. Rashi explains, Yefshar below Eva, if it would be possible to not sell them those items and it wouldn't cause hatred, so we would do that, but that would cause hatred. So of course we do sell those items to the idol worshippers, but again, we're not going to sell the shields to the idol worshippers. And the Gemara continues, Ika Diamri, there are those that say, Chrisin Hainu time, when it comes to shields, what's the reason below that we don't sell them the shields according to that opinion? Zinayu Katli Begavayu, because let's say their weapons run out during war, they actually use the shields to kill with, so that's something that's used to kill with, and therefore we do not sell it to them. And the Gemara continues, V'yeshomrim, now we brought on the previous Amud, there are those that say, Mochem lehem trisin, that we are allowed to sell them shields, and the reason for that is, Dechisholim zinayu, because when their weapons are finished, Miarik arki, they actually just run away, they don't use their shields as weapons. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua. Rav Nachman says that Rabba bar Avua says, Halacha ki yeshomrim, the halacha is like the yeshomrim, that in fact you are allowed to sell shields to the idol worshippers. And the Gemara continues, Amar Avodah bar Avua, Avodah bar Avua says, Ein mochrin lohen hashoshios shel barzel, you cannot sell to the idol worshippers thick blocks of iron. My time, what's the reason? Mishum decholshi minayu klei zayin, because they would take a hammer, they would flatten it out, make it thinner, and they would make weapons out of that, so you can't sell that to them. The Gemara says, Yachi, if so, afilu mori v'chatzine nami, so the same should be true by hoes and axes. They're going to turn those into weapons. We shouldn't be able to sell those as well. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rav Zvid, Rav Zvid says, Befarzela hindua, when we said you're not allowed to sell, that was particularly by the iron that comes from India, that was only used for weapons, and so that's why that in particular is a problem. And the Gemara continues and asks, but what about nowadays, the Kamen Zavnina, that we actually do sell weapons to the idol worshippers? Why do we do that? And the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rav Ashi says, Leparsoi, we sell it to the Persians, to Mignui Lovan, that they actually protect us. That's why that's okay. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Agolim v'sayochim, one may not sell calves or foals to the idolaters. And the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda mater b'shvura. Rabbi Yehuda says that you're allowed to sell a large animal that's an injured animal to the idolaters, because it's not able to heal, it's not able to get better. Rashi explains, therefore you can assume that it's being sold to be slaughtered, and therefore the idolater is not going to keep it alive by him, and a Jew is not going to see it by the idolater, that then people are going to think that you can sell an animal that's not injured, a large animal that's not injured. It's not going to lead to that, because again, the idea according to Rabbi Yehuda is the injured animal is going to be slaughtered right away. And the Gemara continues, Amru lo, so they said to him, the Chachamim said to Rabbi Yehuda, but again, let's say assuming this injured animal is a female, so you're going to take a male and then they're going to have children, so there will be a delay. He's going to keep the animal in order to have other animals. Rashi explains, he's going to keep it by him. So then that's exactly the problem that Rashi just mentioned above. If somebody sees that this is by the idolater's house, he's going to understand that you're allowed to sell the large animals, and he's going to think even a non-injured animal you can sell to the Ovid Kochavim. And so therefore, again, that should be problematic. That's what the Chachamim say to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues, V'kevan de marvin oleh, again, since you're going to bring a male onto this injured animal, v'yoledes, and the injured animal is going to give birth, asu l'shuya, so then therefore the idolater is going to keep it by him, and you're going to have that problem. Amar lahen, so he said to them, likashatele, when it gives birth, Rashi explains, likashatele te'asru, if it's actually able to give birth, fine, then I would say it's prohibited. However, delo teled liolam, however, it's never going to give birth. That's what Rabbi Yehuda was saying. As the Gemara now says, Alma, we see from what Rabbi Yehuda is saying, lo mekabela zachar, that a female animal that's injured is not going to accept the male that is brought to it, and so therefore it's not going to give birth, it's not going to have offspring, and that's why that is not a problem, according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Ben Beseira Matir Besus. Ben Beseira says it's permitted to sell a horse to the Oved Kochavim. The Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Ben Beseira Matir Besus. Ben Beseira says it's mutter to sell a horse to the Oved Kochavim, Mimneshu Osa Bo Malacha Shein Chayavin Alachatas, because the malacha that's done with a horse is the kind of malacha that's not really a doraisa. You're not chayav achatas for doing that malacha anyhow. Again, part of the concern with selling the large animals is that the Oved Kochavim is going to end up doing work on Shabbos with the animal, and let's say he borrows or rents the animal, it's really the Jew's animal, but the malacha that's done with a horse is that you ride on a horse. That's only an Isser Midrabanan, and so therefore it's not a problem by a horse. And the Gemara continues, V'Rebbe Oser Mibnei Beis Devarim. However, Rebbe says it's prohibited to sell a horse to the Oved Kochavim for two reasons. Echon Mishum Toras Klei Zayin. One is because they are used as weapons. V'Echon Mishum Toras Behema Gasim. The other reason is because it is considered to be a large animal. It's problematic to sell a large animal, again, to an Oved Kochavim, and the Gemara now explains. Bishlama Toras Klei Zayin. I understand that it can be used as a weapon. Ika Dekatel B'Sachufe, because it can kill with its, essentially with its hooves. Rashi says, the Katel B'Sachufe Melamdeu Larok Biyodo as Hanoflim B'Melchama. People who fall down during war, it stomps on them, and so therefore it will kill in that fashion. But the Gemara continues, Elatoras Behema Gasa, but the idea that it's a Behema Gasa Mahi, what's the concern over there? Rashi explains, Toras Behema Gasa Mahi, Kolomer Isser Tam Mechiras Behema Gasa Mahi. What would be the reason to prohibit this as a large animal? Hello, Oven Malacha Dechayev Chatas Denigzer Mishum Nisyoni. Again, it's not doing the kind of work that's Chayev Chatas, that's Chayev on a Doraisa level, and so therefore there shouldn't be a Gzer, let's say Nisyone. That was one of the other reasons for Behema Gasa, because you're going to end up testing the animal right before Shabbos, and you're going to put a load on it for Shabbos. But again, none of that is going to apply to a horse, and so therefore, why is it that Rebbe would say it's prohibited? He says Mimnei Beis Devarim, and one of the reasons was Behema Gasa. So what is that referring to? And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, L'keshe Yazkin, when the horse becomes older, Matchino Berechaim B'Shabbos, they actually use it to grind by the millstone, and so therefore that is a Malacha Doraisa. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Halacha Ben Beseira, the halacha is like Ben Beseira, that it's mutter to sell the horse to the Oved Kochavim. And the Gemara continues, Iboilu, they had the following question. Shor shel petem, let's say you have a fattened ox. Mahu, what's the halacha over there in terms of selling it to the Oved Kochavim? And Rashi explains, Shor shel petem, a fattened ox, shepitzmo v'shamin ma'od, again, they fattened it very much, ve'eno roy l'malacha, it's not able to do work. So again, Mahu l'mocher l'Oved Kochavim, what's the halacha in terms of selling that animal to an Oved Kochavim? And the Gemara continues and explains the question, Tiboy l'Rab Yehuda, Tiboy l'Rabbanan. This is a question according to Rabbi Yehuda, and it's also a question according to the Rabbanan. Tiboy l'Rab Yehuda, it's a question according to Rabbi Yehuda. Adkan lo kashari Rabbi Yehuda ela b'shvura. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda only permits selling an injured animal, deloasi lechlal malacha, that it's never able to do malacha, it's never able to do work. Aval hai, but when it comes to this fattened animal, the chimashi lay, let's say he keeps the animal, he lets it get thinner, so asi lechlal malacha, able to do work in the future, that's a possibility. So asr, so maybe it's forbidden even according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues, Odil more maybe afilu l'Rabbanan lo ka'asri hasam. Even the Rabbanan, they only asr, they only forbid it over there by the case of the injured animal. Because really, generally speaking, you're not going to slaughter that animal. Rashi explains, lav l'shchita kaima dekechushu mashu lo legadol vlodos. Maybe they're going to leave it in order to have offspring, as we mentioned above, and so therefore that's why it's prohibited over there. Because tame is lav l'shchita kai. Aval hai, but when you have a fattened animal, the tame l'shchita kai, that in general we're understanding that it is meant for slaughter. If it's a thinner, weaker animal, you don't want to slaughter it. You don't necessarily want the meat. But by the fattened ox, so generally you are going to slaughter it. So then afilu Rabbanan sharo. So then maybe even the Rabbanan would permit that you can sell the fattened ox to the Oved Kochavim. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, come in here the following proof. Diamar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, because Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Shall base Rebbe in the house of Rebbe, Hayu Makriven Shor Shall Petem B'Yom Edom. They used to bring a fattened ox on the Yom Edom. This was like a gift to the king. It wasn't for Avodah Zara, but it was as a gift to the king, and they would bring this fattened ox, but they didn't want to do that because it was something that was really a bizayon. And so the Gemara continues, Chiser Dalid Rivavon, Shein Makriven Oso Hayom El Lamachar. So they spent 1 year, they spent 40,000 coins of whatever the currency was over there in order not to bring it on that particular day, but to bring it the next day, to bring it tomorrow. The idea was they wanted to slowly get rid of this tradition. And then Chiser Dalid Rivavon, Shein Makriven Oso Chayel Shachad, then they spent another 40,000 that they shouldn't bring it alive, rather they should bring it already slaughtered, and chiser dal rivon shein makrivon osoka liquor, and finally they spent 40,000 that they shouldn't bring it at all. And so the Gemara says, my time, and now what's the reason? Why was it problematic? Lav mishum dilma asi l'shahuye. Wasn't it a problem that again maybe they're not going to slaughter the animal right away? They're going to leave it over there. The king is going to leave it out, and it's going to look like you're allowed to sell such an animal to the Ovid Kochavim. And so apparently Shor Shel Petem is problematic. The Gemara says, but according to your reasoning, Shein Makrivin Oso Hayom Elo Lamachar, what's the whole idea over here that they spent money that they shouldn't bring it today, they should bring it tomorrow? My time, what would be the reason for that? El Revi Miakar Milsa Boy, rather all of this was just because Revi wanted to uproot the tradition. Vesavar Yeyaker Vyasi Porsa. So he said, I'm going to uproot it in a way that will do it little by little, and so therefore that has nothing to do with our particular question. But the Gemara continues and asks, is it really true that if you keep an animal that's a fattened ox and you let it get thinner, it's able to do work? The Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi says, Amar li Zavida said to me, Bartura mashinan le v'yavad al chadtrain, that if you have such an animal that you fattened and you keep it, you let it get thinner, it's actually able to do double the work of a regular ox. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein mochrin lahem dovin v'arayis, you can't sell to the Ovdei Kochavim bears and lions, v'chol davar sheyesh bo nezek l'ravim, anything that brings damage to the public, Ein bonin imoim and basilka, you can't build with them, or you can't help them construct a basilica, that was the place where they would judge people and they would throw them off the top in order to kill them, and gardom, that also was an area that they built for capital offenses that they would kill people. Itztadia was stadiums, they would have games over there where the animals would charge the people, and that would kill people. And ubima, you also can't help them construct a bima, which also was a high area that they would push someone off in order to kill them. And the Mishnah continues, Avol bonin imaim bimusios, but you are allowed to build them bimusios. Rashi explains that bimusios were essentially altars. They were made of one stone. They were used as altars. Ubeis merchatzos, you also could build beis merchatzos, which are bathhouses. Higia lakipa, but when you reach the domed part of the bathhouse, shemamidin ba'avodas kochavim, that's the place where they would put the Avoda Zara, aser livnos, that already was forbidden. You're not allowed to build those. Rashi explains, all of the items here that you're not allowed to build, there's a damage to the public. We don't want a Jew that he should be killed over there. That's why it's usher to help them in the construction. And bimosios is binyan sheino and litzorach avodas kochavim. That's a kind of binyan that's not made particularly for Avoda Zara. Altar, they call it an altar. The katani bimosios shalov de kochavim mutar. My bimus, what is a bimus? Bima shall have an achas. It was an altar of one stone. Umakriv zevachim. Now they would bring sacrifices over there. The way Rashi understands, the tashmish la'avodas kochavim. That's like something that serves the Avodah Zara. The korban, the sacrifice they brought, was the actual service of the Avodah Zara. So the building of the altar is one step removed. That's why that was permitted. That's how Rashi understands. Umer chatzos, bathhouses are okay. Bekarka hein asuyin, those were built into the ground. Amuk and Moed, very deep into the ground. V'hamayim noflin mitachas, there was water underneath. V'anoshim rochtzim milmala, and the people would bathe above. Agabe anasarim, on the boards. And Kippur again was the dome. Derech ovdei kochavim lahamid demus Aphrodita. They would put the image of Aphrodite bebeis hamerchatz shalhen, in that area of the beis hamerchatz. So that area already you can't help to construct that area of the Kippur of the dome. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chanin bar Rav Chisda. Rav Chanin bar Rav Chisda says, V'amri lo Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amar Rav. Some people say it's Rav Chanan bar Rava who says that Rav says, Chaya gaso, let's say you have a large animal, Harehi kebehema dako lepirchos. So that's considered like a small animal in terms of the halacha of pirchos. We'll see Rashi in a moment, the halacha of pirchos, that's relevant to the halachos of shchita. Avolo lemechira, but when it comes to selling, so we do not treat a Chaya gasa like a behema daka. Now we said earlier that a behema daka, it depends on the custom. In an area where the custom is not to sell, you don't sell. If the custom is you could sell, you could sell. And so he's saying that's not true by a chaya gasa, by a wild animal that's a large animal. So we're not going to be so lenient. You're not allowed to sell a chaya gasa to an ovid kochavim. V'ani omer, now I say afla mechira, that even when it comes to mechira, meaning to say Rav Chanan bar Rava is quoting Rav, so Rav Chanan bar Rava is quoting that Rav says that it's low mechira, that it's not the same, that we have to be more strict by a chaya gasa in terms of selling to an ovid kochavim. But I say afla mechira, by mechira, a chaya gasa is considered by a behema daka, like a behema daka. You could be lenient if the minig is to be lenient. Makam shanago limchar mochrin, shalo limchar ein mochrin. I say that in a place where the minig is to sell, you can sell. In a place where the minig is not to sell, then we cannot sell. And Rashi explains, Ki behema daka lepirchas, a large wild animal is like a small domesticated animal in terms of the halachas of pirchas, which is the halacha of the animal having spasms. Kida amar gabe behema misukenis. This is a halacha specifically by a behema that is in danger of its life. B'shchitas chulin, it's found in chulin, the following halacha. Behema daka shepashta yoda achar shchita. So let's say you have a small domesticated animal, and it sticks out its hand after the shchita, v'lo echzira, but it doesn't retract it. So it sticks out the foreleg, but doesn't retract. Asura, so we say since it was in danger of its life, it's actually asur. That shchita is not going to make it kosher. To vehema misukenesi, because that animal, it's in danger of its life. Ve'ena muteres acha tefarches. It's only mutter if it's mefarches, meaning to say if it has a full spasm. V'imlo pirchasa, but if not, have a kimesa kodem shchita. We assume that it died before the shchita. The whole concern over here is that maybe the animal died before the shchita. Upishat yad ledaka ena elahot soas nefesh. So if it just sticks out its foreleg, and again you're talking about this small animal, so that's just the death of the animal. Aval gasa, but let's say you have a larger animal, bein pashta v'lo kafava, bein kafalo pashta, whether it sticks out the foreleg but doesn't retract it, or if it retracts it but doesn't stick it out, pirchasi, that's considered to be a spasm, uksheira, and therefore it's kosher, because again it's considered that it's dying from the shchita, and that it did not die on its own. Those are the halachas of pirchas. So it comes out that by a behema daka, we're more strict. We say by a behema daka for pirchas, it has to stick out the foreleg and retract. Hachim mefarish hasim. This is all explained over there. V'chaya gasa nami. So now the question is, what about a large wild animal? So darcha lifshod yad bo tzoas nefesh. So we're saying that also it would stick out its hand as its foreleg as a sign of death. Hilkach shachan chaya gasa mezukenes. Therefore, if he shechts a large wild animal that's in danger of its life, v'lo pirchasa la pashta yad, it doesn't again have the full spasm. It just sticks out the foreleg. V'lo echsir, doesn't retract it. Asur, it's going to be forbidden. That's what it means. This is a stringency. When we say chaya gasa harehi kebehema daka lepirchas, that's a stringency that it has to stretch out and also retract its foreleg in order for the shchita to be kosher. And the Gemara continues, again, going back to the Machlokas Amoraim we just quoted in terms of Mechira. Again, Rav Chanan bar Rava, he said that when it comes to Mechira, we can be lenient to Chaya Gasas like a Behema Daka, and we say that if the minig is you can sell to an Ovid Kochavim, then you can sell to an Ovid Kochavim. And Rav was strict. Rav said, Lola Mechira. When it comes to Mechira, we don't consider a Chaya Gasa like a Behema Daka, and therefore you're not allowed to sell to an Ovid Kochavim. And so the Gemara says, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Ein Mochen Len Dobin Va'arayos. It says that you're not allowed to sell to them bears and lions. V'lo kol davar sheyesh bo nezek l'rab. You can't sell anything that creates a damage, that creates a danger to the public. And so the Gemara says, Taima de'is bei nezek l'rab. The whole reason why it's prohibited to sell these bears and lions to the Ovdei Kochavim is because they damage the public. Hales bei nezek l'rab. But if they don't pose that kind of danger to the public, shari, so apparently it would be permitted. It's only by these wild animals that are a danger that it's a problem. Otherwise, it's permitted. And so therefore, that seems to support what Rav Chanan bar Rava said. Again, Rav Chanan bar Rava said that we treat the chaya gasa, we treat the large animals like the behema daka, and if the minig is to say it's mutter to sell, so it's mutter to sell. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Barula says, in order to defend Rav's position, Ba'ari Shavar, it could be we're talking about a lion that is injured. Rashi explains, Ba'ari Shavar, Hadakatani Masnisan, when our Mishnah says, Di'ari Tarbus Shari, we should say when our Mishnah implies that if it would be a trained lion that would not pose any danger, it would be permitted, that's only Ba'ari Shavar, that's only by a lion that is injured. By an injured lion, we would permit it, as we said, by injured large animals. Rav Yehuda said it was permitted. As the Gemara will go on to say, we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tazayin Amud Beis.